Suman Manning is a mum of triplets. Her adorable three Zs are Xander, Zara and Zoe. Born prematurely at 30 weeks, her daughter spent 3 weeks in NICU and Xander spent slightly longer at 5 weeks. Suman, who is Indian, is insulin resistant and also suffers from polycystic ovarian syndrome, which meant she struggled to ovulate, so getting pregnant was very difficult. She underwent IUI and fell pregnant with triplets, which is pretty uncommon. I have personally known Suman for many years, and like me, she has been living in Dubai for well over 20 years. Suman has always worked in events and just recently worked on a major event in Abu Dhabi, arranging the incredible visit by Pope Francis. She is also the founder of Twins Plus Arabia, which is a support group for parents of multiples in the region. Okay, so let's go right to the beginning, strip it right back and take us to the whole of the beginning of your motherhood journey.
It wasn't as straightforward as we thought it was going to be. We were married for 2 years and we weren't getting pregnant. We went and did a couple of tests. I was driving to Abu Dhabi for work at the time, so the priority wasn't there, but you know, something in the back of our minds that we were wondering why we weren't getting pregnant. All our tests came back clear with you know, Shane was fine, I was fine, my tubes were fine, everything that was needed was there. But one of the doctors that we saw by chance actually recommended that I do an insulin test, which hadn't been suggested before.
Okay.
And my family's got diabetes down the line, you know, everybody over 60 in my mum's side of the family has diabetes. But it wasn't something that I'd ever thought of because I was only 32 at the time, 34. So when I did the test, we found out I was insulin resistant, and apparently it's very common. And the body makes too much insulin. I'm the opposite of being diabetic. Okay. And which means that I don't make enough progesterone, which then means that I don't ovulate. Yeah. My body's got the eggs and it's, you know, it's working, but I've got polycystic ovaries, so it's all kind of connected, which is one of the most common things that women suffer from is the polycystic ovaries. And then if you combine it with the insulin resistance, it kind of makes it that much harder to conceive naturally. Okay. And so then the doctor just suggested IUI.
So is IUI different to IVF?
Yeah. It's quite different, actually. IVF is a more intense and invasive process and a treatment. IUI is pretty much the first step in. So IUI, the fertilization, technical term, happens on the inside of the body. So it's all about, it stands for intrauterine insemination. So it's artificial insemination in layman's terms, and it's all about just getting my follicles stimulated, ready to pop release their eggs, and then inject the sperm at the right time. So then they still have to swim and they still have to meet each other. So the chances of conceiving are in the single digits. So we had a 6% chance of having one baby.
Okay.
And so your chances of having multiples are lower. So with IVF, the fertilization process is outside the body in the lab, and then they
Insert, sorry.
I'm like,
I had quite a few, so I remember this.
Yeah, so they insert the blastocysts in, and then, you know.
I didn't find it as much of an emotional roller coaster because I just went for it, and I went with that different mindset. But I know a lot of women who have done IVF and found it extremely emotional and hard.
My best friend years ago had IVF. She was the first person I knew, and I know how hard psychologically, physically, obviously, and mentally it was on her. And she stopped with the one. She had a little boy, and she won't have another. She won't even try for another child because she just said the process was just too much for her to want to do again. Everyone's different, but for us, yeah, we were the same. We were told I was ready to start my IUI cycle, that day. So I didn't really have much time to dwell on it.
So it doesn't matter about periods and the
It did. So then when I had my appointment with the doctor was the day that I was ready.
Okay.
So he was like, well, what are we waiting for?
Exactly,
Let's go for it. So we were just thrown in, which was a good thing, I think. I think sometimes your mind does
play tricks.
Play tricks, or it makes it harder for you. But you overthink things or you overanalyze things, and but yeah, so we didn't have that choice, and we just went for it. And I've always wanted twins. Apparently, my mum says that I've always talked in the plural. My uncles are twins, and I've always said when I have babies or when I have, not consciously, I don't think, subconsciously, I've always wanted twins. And so my doctor did say, I know you've always wanted twins, but keep your expectations low because, he said you have a 6% chance of one. So don't be disappointed and don't, be too hard on yourself. You're probably not going to have your twins that you've...
So with a 6% chance of only having... You have your IUI, you go back to the doctor to see if it's worked and if you're pregnant, and what happens then?
Yeah, well, so then they said, after 2 weeks, do a home pregnancy test. So that's the length of time that you wait. And if you got a positive, we'll chat about it, or, obviously whichever way it went. So we peed on the stick, and it was positive. It was a Friday. I remember this so well. It was a Friday, so it was terror and excitement and all of that. But so we had to go. It was a weekend, so it was a Friday. Everything was shut, and we went to the Iranian hospital because that was the only government hospital that was close to us, and to just do a blood test. And they said, you need to do a blood test. And you can tell your HCG levels and see if you're really pregnant or not, because the stick is not always accurate. So we did that. And I remember the technician saying to me, oh yeah, your HCG levels are really high. You've been, you've been pregnant for a month or something. And I was thinking, oh, it's not possible. But whoa! And then you go on the internet, which is not something I recommend.
Yeah, the dreaded internet
for people to do, because there's a whole website on HCG levels, which I found out. So you can either have a very high HCG level with one. Or you could have a very high HCG level with triplets or twins, or you could have a very low HCG level with one, or you can have a very low HCG level with twins or triplets. So then, you come away more confused.
Exactly.
So then I called the doctor the next day and said, well, this is our levels. And I remember him saying very clearly, he said, right, we've got to wait for 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Till you're 8 weeks to totally confirm how many there are. I remember him saying this so well. I remember thinking, this is such a joke, But
oh my God.
We'll go. So we waited. For 6 weeks, I knew I was pregnant. I was pregnant. That was all that mattered. I was pregnant.
I got told straight away it was twins, because they said your HCG levels are far too high. It's 2. So I was like, wow, how do you even know? So you're saying you have to wait?
Well, I guess they didn't want to tell me because maybe they just didn't want to get my hopes up, or maybe they just didn't. Maybe that's.
And at the end, you were only told a 6% chance that you're only going to have one anyway. So you're just thrilled you're pregnant.
We were thrilled we were pregnant. That's. I think we were just going, yeah, we were pregnant, and that was.
Fast forward now to the 8 weeks. We've walked in. We've got your scan.
And we've just told a few people. So I've told my mom, Shane's mom. We've told a few very good friends that we're pregnant, and we're going in for our first scan. And this was quite easy for me because I was like, this is great. It's all going to be confirmed. And when we did our ultrasound was when the doctor, had us hear the first heartbeat, and we were just over the moon because he showed us this little black dot with a little white dot in it, and he said, that's your baby. That little white dot's your baby. And I remember just going, wow. And Shane was there, holding my hand, and then he swung the wand around and he said, oh, there's your second. And I felt him tighten his grip on me, and I was just thinking, yes, it's twins. This is amazing. Wow, this is incredible. Very quickly, your brains just try to process all of this. And then he said, when it rains, it pours. There's your third. And everything just went very, everything just went really quiet. And Shane let go of my hand, and I heard this nurse say, "We need a chair, we need a chair," because his legs all just went a bit wobbly.
Bed, not a chair, lying down flat.
He had to sit down. I kind of just had to give him a little bit of a look, just going, "Get yourself together." And yeah, so it was a bit of a shock, I would say the least. I remember sitting up and just bursting into tears because the enormity of it just kind of just washed over me of there's 3. Oh my goodness, you know.
Where's that 6% number gone?
Out the window, totally.
But now, going through your pregnancy, I mean, everyone says, oh, when I put so much weight on, I put about 40 kg on. I was Shrek's wife, Fiona. I was terrible. And everyone always says to me, oh, but Danny, don't worry, you had twins. I'm like, but it's not meant to be. You're not meant to go that size. But you, my friends, you take it to a whole new level.
Stop. Well, I did have that worry, and I looked up again on the internet about what I should expect to happen to me. And a lady in Brazil had gained 33 kilos, and at the time when I got pregnant, I was about 70 kilos. And
you were 70 kilos when you got pregnant.
When I got pregnant, and I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be as heavy as my husband. You know, we're going to be Tweedledum and Tweedledee. And I could not get out of bed for a whole day. I was just paralyzed, all these worries, very shallow in hindsight. But,
it is,
you know,
but at the time.
I remember being really worried and Googling support groups, you know, and finding a support group for twins in Dubai at the time. But I was also put on this medication for my insulin. And I lost 8 kilos in my first trimester. So I actually haven't looked better than I did in my first trimester, pregnant with triplets. I was lean. I'd lost all that extra weight. I had no nausea. I could eat and drink.
No nausea whatsoever?
Nope. I didn't throw up once. It was a dream pregnancy in the sense of, but I was just riddled with, you know, fear and all this anxiety. And I think being pregnant in itself, I think as a woman, you take on so much more responsibility because every twing and twang is a worry, and it's like, do you think, should I worry about it? Is it normal? You know, and by the time I gave birth, though, they came at 30 weeks. So it was a long way from what I was aiming to go for, at least 34 weeks.
What is full time for triplets?
36 weeks.
Same as twins?
Same as twins. I mean, a week or so, but they rarely get to them. There are lots of mums who do get to 35, 36 weeks in our group who've gotten and had, you know, healthy, chunky triplets who've had no time in an ICU. But ours came at 30 weeks. It was all a bit unexpected and very sudden.
Emergency C-section?
Emergency C-section. I actually went into labor the weekend before. I had just some cramping and took myself to hospital in the middle of the night with my mom and me. And then they decided that I had to admit because it looked like the babies were coming. I was in labor and they didn't want a chance because they were so small at the time. They were about 900 grams each. And so I was really worried because I didn't obviously want them to come early, and then the hospital were really, really good. So we went to Al Wasl Hospital, which at the time was the only one which had a really good NICU unit, almost 9 years ago. And they stopped the contractions. They managed to sedate me and then, you know, give me the medications to stop the contractions. So then they just said I had to be there and till the babies arrived, which I was hoping was for another 4 weeks. But then 4 days later, and as all things happen in the middle of the night, I had quite a lot of bleeding and found out that one of my placenta had abrupted, which is quite serious because the baby's going to distress, and then that's something you can't reverse.
So when that happens, they have to get the babies out straight away, right? So luckily, you were in hospital.
You know, and that's,
Thank
I would look
goodness.
at it as being some kind of a silver lining.
Absolutely.
And we were very protected in that sense of being in the hospital already. So they had to have an emergency C-section at 9 in the morning first thing. And it's amazing, again, you know, the human body and how the way it works. It seems that my babies had gained so much weight in that week that we were in hospital. So when I didn't know what weight they were going to be, because my final scan was supposed to be that day, and they were 1.5 kilos.
All three.
All three.
Okay, tell us again their beautiful names.
We had a boy and 2 girls, all fraternal, and we called our son Xander Samuel, and our girls are Zara Grace and Zoe Alaska.
And Zoe Alaska. I never knew her middle name was Alaska.
The time I went into labor and had them, I was 72 kilos. I gained about 10 kilos in my whole pregnancy.
Your whole triplet pregnancy,
Yeah.
you gained 10 kilos.
Yeah.
Well, that just
But I guess
that blows everybody's myth about when you've got 1, 2 or 3.
no. I guess I've got to put it down to the fact that they didn't have time to cook enough and to put on all that weight, and you know, they came 10 weeks, almost 10 weeks early.
Yeah, but still.
And there's a lot of growing.
That you are so lucky. I think I put 10 kilos on in my first week of being pregnant. So you are so lucky.
No, I guess if you look back on it in that sense, I just was really happy that they were healthy. The neonatologists were thrilled with their weight.
So how long did they spend? Because obviously every baby's in NICU, right? So how long did they do?
Yes. So there is. We had our girls in there for 3 weeks, and we had our son in there for 5, and he caught an infection in the NICU unit. So he got quite a bad virus, a bacteria called Klebsiella, and which basically caused him to have septicemia, which is blood poisoning.
No way.
And it was a very sick little boy. Yeah, he was very poorly, and he had to have 8 blood transfusions in a span of a week.
Oh my
And
goodness.
that shows you how, you know, resilient babies are and what fighters they are, and how actually tough. And you know, we look at them as being these fragile little beings, which they are, but they're also, I think, just incredibly tough.
You know, I'm so pleased you've touched on that, because kids are so resilient. But when they are so small and they're, you know, born prem, they're in ICU, they get sick, they're having these blood transfusions, it is the most scariest thing to witness.
It is, and it kind of just takes so much of any kind of control you have away. I just think it also made me quite a different mum than what I would have possibly been.
I think because in that short time, you found out you're pregnant, you're having triplets, you know, your babies are born early, you spent that week in hospital, you've gone through all these intense emotions that it's not just as simple as, and luckily for some mums, they just get pregnant, have an easy pregnancy, pop a baby out. You've gone through so many emotions in that short time that I think, like you said, your children become resilient. We become so strong.
I'm a totally different person than what I would have thought I would be as a mom.
Because you were tested so much before you even got home.
Yeah.
What I really love about your journey as a parent of triplets is that you've kind of given back so much of your time to the community. You really help people, you know so many people, you give advice to people, and you've done this with creating Twins Plus Arabia.
You were pregnant, I Googled for support, or there must be a support group for somebody who's feeling all of these things. And there was a lovely lady called Kate who had a small group at the time, and she had triplets. And it was enormously reassuring meeting her and just talking to her, and for her to tell me what to expect. And as Dubai is, you know, she had to move there, her husband, they had to relocate to Australia, and I volunteered to take on running the group because I really wanted to give back. I got so much in my pregnancy from meeting other mums of twins, of triplets who'd been there, done that, who'd walked that path, and were able to just, you know, tell me that it was going to get easier, or what to expect, and not to worry, and to just enjoy the present and not to worry about what the future be, because everyone's different, everyone's journey is different, and then we've just grown from there on. We've grown from about 100 families about 8 years ago to about 1,500 families now.
1,500.
That's without us really doing too much advertising, because it's a lot of work, and I couldn't do it all the time. We started off just being quite an online platform. We were doing more on Facebook, just having some meetups, and I did a lot of weekly meetups because I really wanted my kids to go out. So we did a Wednesday meetup at Cheeky Monkeys, and
Perfect place.
that was our go-to place.
Really?
They did a great twins and triplets discount, which made a big difference.
Of course.
To get out of the house, take your kids somewhere, break the monotony of your routine, and also to socialize, not just for the kids, because at that time, at that age, below the age of 3, it's not really about socializing for the kids. They'll just play with a box.
It's the network for the mums.
It was.
And I think that's
really just talking and meeting other mums.
And I think that's what Cheeky Monkeys does so well, because of the play area is around the social area.
Yeah.
The mums can be, with their
See
children.
through,
Exactly.
You can have a cup of tea, you can have a conversation. You can try and have a conversation.
Whenever somebody asks a question on Facebook, sometimes you forget, that because you've been there, but none of us knew that at the beginning. So someone will be like, one of the twins isn't growing as fast as this twin, or not having this milk, and they ask questions, and you look and you think, we all go through the same journey, we're just doing it at different times.
Yeah.
So the fact you've put this together to help people, I think is really commendable, because a lot of people don't have the support network. So just being able to pick up their phone and look at a group where most of the questions are answered for them, going onto your website and it's in detail, you've really done a good job.
Thank you. We've evolved from when we started off. It's kind of evolved. We've got so much support within our community from other mums who now give back full time. So we have Cassie, who went through the IVF journey, found that quite isolating here, and now runs a community and supports other women on that journey. We have Lala, who's had her journey with identical twins, having twin-to-twin transfusion, and is now giving back full time as a doula, and especially for the multiples community and also beyond. So there are people within the group who can help you, with loss. And it's not my journey. It's not been something that I've had to experience. But there are other people in our group who are able to support and uphold and love other members of our twins family, because they've been through that. So it's not just me running the group in that sense. So
You've brought a community together, and that's what's so powerful about
the community is growing every day and teaching me so much every day. It's incredible, the vastness of the community. We've got 45 different nationalities. We've got people from Egypt and Lebanon in the group, and Saudi Arabia in the group. So, we're so varied.
Thank you so much. I love speaking to you. I could speak to you all day, and thank you so much. I love you. Thank you. Thank you. Mwah. Thank you, darling. Thank you.